Everybody. Thanks for joining me. My name is Victoria Longo, and I wanted to talk about our stories and our assumptions and creating them. Oh my, as the title says. And I got to thinking about this because of a situation that occurred for me today. And what had happened is I was in the subway station. I had seen a guy who looked like he was homeless. Unfortunately, here in New York City, it's a pretty common occurrence anymore, where you will see probably 5 to 10 homeless people per day, depending on how much you're out and about. But it's sadly pretty common. So anyway, I'd seen this gentleman. And when I was on my subway ride back to where I was going, he actually popped on my train and was asking for money. And he was asking for money to cover his medication, so that because he had gangrene in his leg, and he didn't want to he was afraid of having his leg amputated. But the way he did it, he asked for money. He asked for money for his medication. Nobody really helped him out. So he got angry and he got desperate, and you could hear it in his voice. Except what he did is he took it out on us that that we weren't giving him the money for the medication that he needed. And so he was yelling at us, basically saying, like, I know you have it. I know you can help. And there was, he was almost in tears. I don't want to lose my leg. I know you can do this. And nobody really did. Now, I did have a couple dollars I could have thrown him. And, that it didn't feel good to be accused to be the reason for his condition. And it got me thinking how many times we actually assume and invent stories for things in our lives when we don't get our expectations met. And I think it happens quite often. I know I used to do it a whole lot. I'm way more aware now of when I'm in that story, and so I don't get as caught up in it or wasting time in it. But it's like we decide we want something. We decide who's going to be the one to deliver it to us. And we sometimes can get angry and upset if that person doesn't deliver what it is that we're looking for. And one of the more recent examples that I have, and more recent this is 8 years ago, but as I said, I've gotten a lot better at recognizing this pattern for myself. And I just want to get that there. That's better. Maybe I should just turn this off here. But I've gotten better at recognizing that pattern for myself. So I don't really have any other examples over the last couple of years that stick out. And this was when I first met my man, my guy. And he, it was fate, it was, kismet, whatever you want to call it. Butterflies and, sparkly things and tingles and everything. And I adored him. Now, he made it clear to me, he told me he didn't do relationships. And I listened, heard it, and I started creating the stories as to why he didn't do a relationship. And I started making assumptions about what it would take to get him to commit to me. Sometimes I assumed that he would be in a commitment with me. The only thing that did was it made me upset and frustrated because I still didn't have what I wanted, which was a relationship. And I was spending all this time in my stories trying to justify and validate his behavior with my friends of, he took me out here, and I feel like this video is making me go cross-eyed. He took me out here and this means something, and this is what he did, and let's dissect the entire night so that we can figure out, if he's in the relationship or if he's still out of the relationship. And so much freaking time was spent. And he didn't change his position. He was very honest about it. He didn't try to hide it. I was just the one that was assuming and trying to make the changes to have what I wanted. And it just, it didn't feel good to me. It didn't feel good to be going after somebody who didn't want me, and who, I don't want to say that because he did, but who couldn't give me what it was that I was actually looking for. I was left feeling like I wasn't good enough, like there was something wrong with me, and if I could just be better, if I could just find that thing, and again, all these assumptions, if I could just do that one right thing, then we could be together. And the truth was, he just didn't do relationships. He didn't do commitment, and he was very clear about that. And it got to the point that it was Thanksgiving, and I was in tears, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it for myself. I'm not happy. I'm upset all the time. And, and I was upset because I didn't know how to change it. I wanted something, he couldn't give it. And it was all this back and forth. So I decided to leave, and I decided to, rather than creating stories and assumptions, actually find somebody who could give me exactly what it was that I was looking for. So I left him, and I started my pursuit, and, as it happened, a couple months later, he came back, and he decided he did want to have a relationship. So, we've been together since. But when I look at how much time I spent being upset, I spent creating these stories that half the time weren't even true because they were all in my head. It wasn't that he was too hurt to have a relationship. It wasn't that he just needed more love. Like, all of those are stories that we put together to try to make sense of a situation where we're not getting our expectation met or our needs met. And none of that actually changed everything, or none of that actually changed anything, because I still didn't have what it was that I was looking for. My time was spent trying to justify and validate why I didn't have what I was looking for. And so this, seeing this homeless guy on the train just reminded me of how often we tend to do that. We tend to put the blame outside of ourselves. We tend to look to everybody else and expect them to solve our problems without ever changing anything that maybe got us there, or just looking to see if there's another solution. If there's nobody on this train car that's giving us money, maybe there's somebody on the other train car that could. So there's a lot of time that we end up, spending not actually having what we want. And we could actually focus on what it is we want, and instead of creating the stories and the assumptions as to why this particular person or this particular situation isn't meeting our needs, we could spend our time actually trying to look for ways to have what we want that's not this person and not this situation. So, it's just, for me, the way I looked at it was, how am I investing my time? If this life is short, I learned that a long time ago, had it reiterated this year how fragile life is. Do I really want to spend my time not happy, trying to, stuck in the muck of trying to understand somebody else? Or do I want to say, you know what? Toss it in the bucket and figure out, and I got that from a mentor of mine, Lee Vinzil, toss it in the bucket and try to find somebody that can actually give me what I want, or a way to have what I want, rather than, being caught up in this. I actually ended up seeing another homeless person, unfortunately, later on today. And he just had a sign. He wasn't really saying anything, very unassuming. And I gave him $1. And he was so thankful, and he was like, I'm just so hungry, and you're the first person who stopped for me today. And I ran an errand. I ran into the bank, and when I came back out from the bank, he had actually bought food off the food cart and was eating it. And so I gave him $2 more because I knew he was hungry, and I thought, it could help him. And he just, he didn't come off as he was blaming me for a situation. I don't know if he took responsibility for it. I didn't get into that with him. But there's a difference in energy. There's a difference with people when there's a lot of blame, shame, guilt, and regret, and when they're just, asking for help. And, so where are we at? And this is where I like to look for myself in my life, is where am I functioning from? Am I getting caught up in a story and blame, shame, guilt, and regret? And usually those are emotions are a good indication that I'm caught up in some story and assumptions of somebody else meeting an expectation of mine, instead of actually trying to create a situation to have that. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope this video was helpful to you. It's been a super long day today. And this is the first chance I've had to go live. As always, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to, send me an email. I'll drop them on this video. And I hope that you enjoy your evening. Thank you.